Welcome to Next in Queue, the podcast for contact center and customer experience professionals. Next in Queue is brought to you by Happy2, your service team's personal coach, giving them the process, resources, and insights to deliver the perfect customer experience over the phone. Learn more at happitu.com. Now, here's your host, Rob Dwyer.
Thanks, everyone, for joining another episode of Next in Queue. My name is Rob Dwyer, and joining me today, the Vice President of Customer Experience for Warby Parker, Brian Dunphy. How are you, Brian?
I'm great. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining. So let's just get started with, where are you from? Are you from the Florida area?
No, I'm actually from upstate New York. I grew up in a very small town outside of Syracuse, New York called Skinny Atlas. It's on the Finger Lakes, and grew up there, and then, started my career actually in Syracuse, New York.
Okay, well, so what did you start doing there?
So, I had, kind of odd jobs around, when I was trying to find my way, and I worked construction and all kinds of things. And I got a job in 1986 for Key Bank of Central New York in their phone bank, which I tell customer service agents today as a customer service rep for their loan department. And this was when you would call into the operator and give your name and your area code, and then they would send it back to a group of a hunt group, which would be about 4 or 5 people. And we would take the phone call, and we didn't have computers. We actually had file cabinets of people's loan systems, loan paperwork, and we would make notes in shorthand of their inquiries. And then we would go to, if they wanted a balance on their account, we would have one computer that was shared by 50 people, and it was an old DOS-based system that you hit tab, 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 account number, then tab, 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 enter. So I started my career as a customer service agent on the phone, taking calls for Key Bank of Central New York, and found out I actually really liked it.
That is, number one, an awesome story. And I love that there was a hunt group. I think that's something that a lot of people don't even know what a hunt group is. Yeah. Those of us that have been around or worked in the right places know what a hunt group is.
Yeah.
So no computer, doing a lot of paper, except for the computer that you have is the greatest user interface in the world. It's lots of tabs. So where did you end up after that?
I went to a company called ITT. They had a financial services division, and we really handled the entire customer experience this was in lending. And so we would do the 90 days, same as cash loans. We would do home equity loans and that kind of thing, and really learned how to interact with the customer from the very beginning of the application process to, all the way to where they're paying their loan off. And so the entire journey of it. And so our department was, or our branch was in Liverpool, New York. And I worked out of there for a number of years until that company was bought out by another company. And then I went back to my roots and took a customer service job in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for a bank called Barnett Bank. And it was, they were purchased by Bank of America, but I really started my management career at Barnett Bank, was a customer service agent in the collections department for Barnett Bank, but then moved to the customer service loan, the loan line, they called it, the loan customer service team. And we sort of put that process in place of trying to close loans right on the telephone with customers at that time, which was unheard of. This is early 90s, but became a customer service manager. And really enjoyed, that was a fun job. Started as a supervisor, but then became manager. Love that job. And Barnett Bank was all about the service experience. And we went through a buyout by Nations Bank and then another buyout by Bank of America. And then I moved into a senior manager of customer experience for First Data Merchant Services out of Coral Springs, Florida, which is outside of Fort Lauderdale, and really cut my teeth as an executive there. Was the customer service manager, became the director of customer operations, and then became the director of service operations. So I had a department as a customer experience director of 160, then went to close to 700 as a service operations director for the Southeast. So really enjoyed those roles, and that's where I got my Six Sigma Black Belt certification. First Data is still in business today. They're a great company.
Yeah.
From there, went to I decided it wasn't cold enough in Fort Lauderdale. Decided to move to Peoria, Illinois, to get
You're
the
crazy.
wind back.
You're crazy.
Right. And went to work for a business process outsourcer called Afina. They are now HTMT, the Hinduja group, but I was their director of quality and implementation. So we would bring new clients on and get them implemented in the process and manage their quality management system of inspecting calls and scoring and all those things. Was in Peoria for 4 years, loved it, but Assurion came calling in Nashville. When I started with Assurion, it was about 2,000 people at the time. They were still in the roadside assistance business, and became the director of quality for a great leader named Bonnie Speck in Nashville. Moved my family to Nashville in 2008 and was there through 2016. That was a great company that did a lot for my career. Was able to become the director of quality, then the director of Nashville operations. And then they decided, Brian, we want you to kind of go away. And they sent me to Australia to open the Australian business for Assurion. And so I spent, my manager at the time was Todd Cretion, and he said, it'd be just a couple months stint. Then 2 years later, I came back from Australia, launching the business with a client there and growing the operation. I came back and I was back for a couple of weeks, and my boss came to me and said, "Don't unpack."
No.
Then moved me to London. This was going to be a 30-day thing. A year later, I came back.
Wow.
And was asked to run retail operations for Assurion, and I did that for a few years, and then got into really managing the outsourced footprint and launching in different countries for Assurion, and so got to see the world on somebody else's dime, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
But then I was again traveling all over the world, and the travel started to become more and more difficult. And Assurion, still a great company, but it was going in a different direction than I wanted to go. And Postmates came calling, and Postmates was launching in Nashville. They were a new company at the time. I think we had 24 people in Postmates in customer experience. And in the sales team, I think they had 10. So it was very small. We moved into the Cumming Station building here in Nashville, and we grew to about 1,600 people when I left, but we launched customer experience in Nashville with Postmates, and really in partnership with Donna Draymond, who's been on previous podcasts.
Yeah.
We really changed that overall experience. We had a poor rating in the Better Business Bureau of an F, and we were able to turn that around to an A+ within 6 months, and doubled down on the customer experience. I stayed at Postmates for a couple of years. It was a great experience starting from scratch and launching, a company potentially going IPO at the time. That was just a great experience. Learned a lot about myself. Learned about working with millennials, which was, it's like working with my kids, right? And it was life-changing for me, and I really enjoyed it. From there, was asked to come and launch Disney Plus operations. So I started with Disney and went through the launch of Disney Plus, which I will never, ever, ever forget. It was fantastic. It was, I had a full head of hair when I started, but launched Disney Plus operations from, hey, we didn't even have our CRM. We had no processes to launching in November with a full-blown system, and it was starting state of the art. The Disney magic was, how do you transfer the Disney magic that you see in the parks to the Disney online experience? And so that was a big challenge for us, and I thought we did a really good job. We went from 0 customers to 60 million in 24 hours, and it was a great experience. And then COVID happened, obviously, and Hulu and Disney combined. And so they already had a big streaming services team on Hulu. And so they had, as everybody knows, it's publicly known that they had the big cutbacks in 2020 with Disney, and was able to secure a job with a startup called Pvolve in New York. And it was kind of a bridge job. They were a very small company. I think I had 3 people in my department. Going from 7,000 to 3 was fun. But then, I was with them, helped them sort of get their customer service off their feet. It's a great product. It really is a big believer in women's health. It's very geared towards women's health. And there's some dynamic people like Julie Cartwright. She's fantastic. She was the president of the company and just really take it in a great direction from a women's health perspective. But then Warby Parker recruited me and said, we have this vice president position of customer experience. And I started interviewing and really learned a lot about what Warby was doing to be sort of dynamic in the eyewear space. Didn't have any experience in eyewear, but had lots of experience in customer experience. And so here I am, and I'm loving it. It's the first time in a long time I really wake up excited to come to work, because their core values are very much in line with my own core values.
Yeah, it's quite the journey that you've had. It's a lot to
unpack there.
Yeah, I want to back up a little bit. So obviously you started very much in banking, financial services, all kind of insourced, and then you moved to a BPO, an outsourcer.
Yep.
What was that transition like for you? I mean, what did you learn in that was different from insourcing?
Learned a tremendous amount about how do you, again, the BPOs are for profit, where on the flip side, when you're in-house, you're a cost model. And so how do you flip that mindset of saving costs to generating revenue? And so, getting as efficient as possible, and representing another brand that's not a product that I work for. And so at the end of the day, regardless of how much technology out there, we're still a person-to-person business. And so the relationships as a BPO outsourcer and be able to provide insight into the customer experience that they may not have in-house was an invaluable skill to develop, because then when I switched back to the insource, I took all the things I learned from that experience to use it from an in-house. And this is the business intelligence we need. I think the BPO outsourcers, a lot of them do a very good job to understand the entire customer experience, because they're trying to add value to their job, to the service they provide. Because at the end of the day, customer experience is cost. It's all cost. And so you want to be able to add value. You want to be able to create stickiness. And so having that business intelligence arm as a BPO outsourcer, having the vision into the quality experience, recommending changes. We had an agent that actually worked with a faucet company and developed their manual because of all the customer inquiries we were getting. They sat down and helped write the manual, and that manual is still in place today with that particular client, but that was written from an agent perspective. And so getting the ideas and really understanding the experts that are our agents, getting their ideas of how to best service the customer and what the problems were, and then taking that back in a very organized fashion to a client, that was invaluable. And so using that today, where my favorite thing to do in a customer service experience is to walk the floor and talk to our agents. Bar none, that's my favorite activity, because you learn so much, not only about your customer, but about the agents and their challenges, having focus groups and really opening it up to what they want to talk about versus what I'm trying to get as an executive, finding out those little pieces. I learned all that and cut my teeth on that working in the BPO outsourced world.
Yeah, I mean, that's some great insight. And I absolutely agree that there are a lot of companies that ignore the inside of the people that are interacting with the customers the most, which are typically your frontline agents, right?
Yeah.
They have so much knowledge and understanding of what's broken, what's working, what could take things to the next level. And sometimes the things that are impacting customer experience are agent hindrances that we can easily fix. Maybe a technology issue. It might just be, they're working on one screen. They need two screens. Like there are all kinds of things
that's
we can fix.
exactly it. It's breaking it down to, the most granular level. I think that's why Assurion, when I started there in 2008 and really my entire career, what was so fun about it is all of us worked in the BPO industry. And so, the senior leadership, and we took a lot of things that we learned from that. And one of the things we did create at one point is called a panel of experts. And we took a group of agents and they would work with the technology teams and the art marketing teams. And they would sit down like you would see a webcast today with people sitting down with a microphone in their hand. And instead of the agents being the audience, they were actually in the hot seat, and the developers were doing that. When we actually took that to another level of Postmates, where we learned that experience was really great for our technology teams, we moved about 10 agents from Nashville and had them take calls for a week and a half in San Francisco with our developers sitting behind them.
Yeah.
And what was the biggest issue? And so, when you talk about food delivery, everybody's going to talk about, I got screwed at the drive-through. Well, it's the same thing with food delivery, where it's missing items, or, the item gets dropped off. And so if you think about it from at this time, this was early on in the food delivery, that's where we came up with the proactive service of reaching out to the driver. If we saw the driver was taking too long in a restaurant, did they need help? And then proactively reaching out to the customer to say, hey, the food's taking a little bit longer, this is happening, that kind of thing. And that was based on feedback from the advisors of what happens the most from a call perspective coming in. And if we reached out, could we troubleshoot and get in front of that, even if it's via text message or a phone call, that kind of thing. We found it deflected a lot of volume coming in because we took that proactive step, even with a low cost of a text message saying, hey, this is where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, because I'm fascinated. You mentioned starting at Disney Plus and going to 70 million customers overnight. I was one of those customers. I think it was everyone who sees the Lego Star Wars behind me probably could have guessed.
Absolutely.
So first of all, I'd like to know what was the hardest part of that? Because it sounds like, right, when you talk about a lot of these things, people come into a situation where it's already existing, right? We're trying to improve, and you're going into Disney Plus at this point and really kind of starting from scratch. And it's a new platform, and it's not a startup, right? This is, yeah, you're starting something new, but I mean, everybody knows the name Disney. There's a lot of pressure on, I imagine, that doesn't exist in the startup world. So talk to me a little bit about what that was like and kind of what the hardest part of that launch was for you.
Sure. So it definitely it felt like a startup. There's no doubt. The great thing about it is you had Disney behind you. So from any startup, you're already scratching for funding. Well, we had the entire backing of the Disney brand launching this piece, and they, the marketing, as you remember, during the time was crazy. I was walking through JFK Airport, going overseas to meet with our teams in Asia, and all the Star Wars were on the concourses. There was so much Disney Plus stuff, and I'm like, can we just stop just for a minute, please? This is killing me. We haven't even launched yet, and I'm going to get a billion calls the first day. Somebody help me. But I think the hardest thing was we were still putting together the platform to service customers with right up until launch, even after launch. And we did a lot of things right, and really gathered a lot of information, but we had to develop a CRM, and we had a platform that no one else was using within the Disney program to service the customers and gather information. And then on top of that, we had to develop a help center. I think the challenge is really understanding what we thought customers would call about ended up not being exactly what people really called about. And so we launched this technology, this awesome streaming service that was highly technical, really high quality streaming, but people were streaming it on devices that were 10 years old, right? And didn't have, so people are calling in, well, I've got this Google dongle that's 10 years old and it's, pixelating. Well, yeah, maybe we can step into the 20th century and get an upgraded version. But so really understanding what was going on. And so the biggest challenge was, how do we get the information in data? So what we implemented was, again, this goes back to the BPO days. Back a long time ago, we had a daily check-in call with every site. And part of that was your workforce management, your staffing, how you're performing, but also what's going on with the experience. So what we did was we had the developers who were in charge of the streaming service piece. Then we had every site, and you're talking about a fairly large group of people, about 3,000 or 4,000 people, but we had every site that was taking calls, their site director, site leader, and then some of the managers on. So we probably had about 30, 40 people on this call. And we'd go site by site. What are we hearing? What are the issues? And then the developers then would say, okay, we need more granular. What version of the software are they running on their device? What type of device is it? When was it purchased? What year? We really got very granular to get in front of these streaming issues quickly. What we had thought was going to be a lot about customer service and that kind of piece. And we, quite frankly, understaffed for it. There was sort of a thought process on this, the technology will work seamlessly. For the most part, it did, but you're talking about, we got hit with 325,000 contacts in the first day. And so,
wow.
Yeah. And it was crazy. We had long wait times and that kind of thing, but we were able to get through it. And we were able to make the data very actionable by having that daily check-in call with the developers and the call centers, and really attack the customer issues right up top. And I thought Disney supported us and really did a nice job of helping us align that. This was during some of the downturn of the park seasons where the Disney parks, they were going through a slower period. We were able to rally people from the Disney parks teams into Disney Plus, get them trained, get them licensed, get them up and running. So we had the support of the entire Walt Disney Company, which was fantastic. And I really think that they're continuing to, raise the bar from a streaming service perspective with a product that always continues to impress me, in a product that I absolutely love and still use today.
Yeah, well, me too. And we're recording this on on May 26th, and there's some exciting stuff coming out this week. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that really is fascinating. Honestly, I can't imagine. It sounds like right, you think you're going into customer service, and you end up doing tech support, and
Yeah.
you end up doing tech support really for just about probably every device out there, right?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Because people are streaming to computers, to TVs, to their phones, to dongles,
Yep.
just tablets, and you're talking about every make, model, and OS that exists probably that you're having to deal with. And if you hadn't hired a bunch of people with all of those kind of tech support skill sets already baked in, there's certainly a learning curve for the agents as well,
Oh, sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there may even be some nomenclature that they're not even familiar with when you start getting as granular as it sounds like you needed to get.
Well, they had tech carts that would be in the centers, and the tech carts were movable. And so you could try to recreate the issue. We had a lot of different devices on these tech carts, and try to recreate the issue. And so again, that's where Disney sort of stepped up and said, we need to have our agents prepared, because this is what a Disney customer expects from us. And so were we 100% perfect? No, but I thought I was very proud of what the team did. I was very proud of the team that worked for me. And, I still talk to some of the people there today, and I always beam with pride of what we accomplished.
Yeah, I bet. I want to go back a little bit to your time at Postmates.
Sure.
I think, one of the things that I talk to a lot of people about, because I think a lot of organizations still wrestle with this, is when it comes to the channels that we manage, and depending on your business, there are all different kinds of channel preferences that go on. With Postmates, I know that you really led kind of a change in social and using that as a channel. So
Oh,
can
yeah.
you talk to me a little bit about, what led to that decision, and, what was successful about it? What were the challenges that you faced? And those kinds of things as far as just that channel.
Well, I think the decision was made because understanding who our customer is, right? And so the customers that were using Postmates and Uber and Lyft and these different services were not, my age. They were younger college students. They were in their 20s, early 30s. And so really understanding what are the vehicles that they communicate in. And so we certainly knew, like, take example of my kids. My kids don't read email, they text. And so understanding that where to meet them in their channel. And so we had a marketing arm of Postmates that did everything through social media. But then we started really getting customer service inquiries through social media, and the social media team marketing side would get them to us and we'd work on them. We then developed, we need a team to actually address these issues because, obviously when I was younger, a bad experience influenced 10 people. Well, now it influences thousands through social media. You can also then, Donna really spearheaded a lot of this, but you can also make it such a great promoter of your brand. If you think of brands that you're loyal to, most of the time it started out with a problem and how they solved it. And so if we can solve the problem through the social media channel and then they repost about it, that's not solicited. That's them just reposting about it, and people believe in that versus us posting about it. So getting customers to repost and solving their problems, that really sort of took off in our mind.
Yeah, that word of mouth, I mean, that really is the best kind of advertising. It's interesting to me, right? You talk about the demographics, who's using Postmates and kind of meeting them where they are. You're at Warby Parker now, and it's funny, I was just having a conversation with my wife about Warby Parker because, her initial reaction to that business was, there's no way I would do that over the internet, right? I want to try on my glasses. But actually, our oldest child, who's early 20s, was an early adopter and is ordering glasses, trying them on, deciding. And it took my wife a while, and then she kind of saw that and was like, okay, well, I'll try this. What have you guys seen as far as are you seeing that bleed over in demographics, and does that influence how you approach your customer experience? Or are you still primarily dealing with a lot of kind of that younger demographic?
I think we're seeing it bleed over a bit, but I think as people get more used to technology, especially I was teaching my mom how to use the app where you can, it's a camera and the glasses go on and you can see it right on your face, which is a really cool feature. And, I think it's us who are, I'm kind of late Gen Xer, teaching, getting taught by the millennial generation and how to really use some of the apps, but also, a lot of Gen Xers are pretty technically savvy. And so, we want to solve things within the app. Like any customer service person was, I don't want to call anybody. I just don't. I'll do it when I have to, but if I can solve it in the app, I think the big thing that we learned from Postmates, as well as that I know the other companies Warby is doing, Disney Plus is doing, is how do you keep the person in app? And so if you keep the person in app and you can solve their issues within the application versus them having to go to another channel, you can really create a loyal experience. The other piece of that is, how do you, if you have to leave the app, how do you pick up the experience at the exact moment? Companies like USAA are great at that. So if I stop my process on USAA and I pick it up and call their call center, they'll say, oh, I see you were in the app and here's what you were doing, blah, blah, blah. Having that ability to do that integrated technology, that's where our companies are moving to. Some companies are ahead of us, but really understanding where can we meet the customer. The other piece is, I think where Warby really sort of gets it is we're about the customer experience. I mean, we answer customer questions. We have the retail presence. We have the CX presence. We don't put people through a long IVR. Actually, we don't even have an IVR in some of our lines. We answer the phone, and that's a differentiated experience. And our company really believes in the person-to-person contact.
Yeah. Speaking of IVRs, right before we got started, you told me a little story about an IVR when you were at Disney, and I want to come back to that because I'm just that kind of nerd. So will you tell us about that?
Sure. So when we launched the IVR for Disney Plus, we had 3 options. Press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, 3 for Wookiee. And so it was a joke. We had fun with it. And we ended up taking it down because they wanted us to be a little bit more serious, but we wanted to inject some fun into it. And you could press Wookiee and it would go through prompts by Chewbacca. And you try to figure out what the prompts are. And then you get to the last prompt and it would send you back to the main menu. But it was Chewbacca at the very end laughing at you with that laugh he does. And then you would go back to the main menu. And we thought that was fun. And, the people who are Star Wars geeks like myself, they always appreciate it. So every time I'd call in, I'd choose Wookiee every single time. I try to figure it out. But we did a lot of things around the IVR to make it fun like that. But on top of that, we made our alphabet. Like if you're calling in and instead of A for Alpha, B for Beta, it was A for Anakin, nice. B for Boba Fett. We went through the whole alphabet, and you could look at every genre from the princess genres to the Marvel genres to the Star Wars genres. and just have fun with it. And
Yeah.
I think customers really appreciated that. And then on top of that, when you had a customer calling in, you could see what are they viewing. And so if they're a Star Wars person, you can gear your entire conversation around Star Wars. And, we did a lot of Easter eggs within our help desk. And so it was a lot of fun. It was fun because, the people I worked with, we worked a lot of hours to launch this. So we injected some fun to it because we're nerdy like that. So,
Yeah. There's just something about understanding your brand and your customers, right? That goes into customer experience. And so certainly I think a company like Disney understands very much who their customers are and kind of what they're consuming. And that can fall into a lot of different segments, but it can also, there are a lot of people that probably throughout the family, right? If I've got a decent sized family, that we might be consuming all these different pieces of Disney content, but being able then to take what sometimes, right, an interaction that people don't look forward to, right? If I have to call customer care, so you mentioned earlier, like you avoid that like the plague, and I understand that. But if I'm going to have someone do that, depending on your brand, again, this isn't for everyone. You're probably not going to do this at Bank of America, but depending on your brand, you can absolutely have some fun with that. And if you know your customer, you can tailor things to that customer. And those experiences really can drive loyalty. And so it can be fun to play with some things in those channels.
absolutely. Yeah. I enjoy injecting a little bit of fun into things. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, there's not enough fun in customer care, I don't think, anywhere. And I think the more that we can have, while still respecting, obviously, the job that needs to be done, the brand voice, and understanding our customers, I think there are companies out there that really have opportunities to do something a little bit different and a little bit playful and fun like that.
Absolutely.
So, you've been working now, particularly over the last few years, with some really, I would say, on the forefront of technology companies, right? I mean, certainly, Postmates was one of those companies that's kind of upending, food service delivery. Disney was, I don't want to say upending streaming, but they were certainly a big player right out of the gate. Sounds like there were some interesting things going on at P-Volve. Warby Parker obviously is a company that is doing things completely differently within eyewear. What kinds of things do you think are the things that are going to take customer experience to the next level over the coming years, whether that's where you are today, maybe things that you're working on, or it may be things that maybe aren't necessarily in Warby Parker's future, but you're looking at and just keeping an eye on?
I think overall, not forgetting customer service is about creating a relationship with your customer. There's so much technology out there that, from an AI perspective, from automation, and I get it, there's a place for that. And, driving in the 35 years I've been doing this, no one's calling up to say hello. I'm still waiting for the call. Hey, Brian, how you doing? Hey, I'm good. Thanks for checking. I appreciate the call. I've never gotten that call. And it's about solving customer problems. So if you can be focused on solving and solutioning the customer's problems, especially on the front end. I had a boss at one time back at First Data, a great guy. And he said to me, he goes, I want our agents to feel like they're the president of the company. And let's empower them. And so as much technology as you can have, as much automation as you can have, those things are all important. At the end of the day, are your agents empowered to actually solve the customer's problem? And in many respects, they're not. For whatever reason that people want to do. We had an issue one time at a previous company where the CEO did not want us to do any refunds at all. Don't do any refunds. I don't care what the reason is. And we're like, okay, everything's going to tank as a result of that, which it did. And then the escalation started getting to him, and it was painful. And he said, okay, well, how do we look at certain things to make these refunds or things of that nature automated, so the customer doesn't have to jump through hoops? And so you're getting the calls that you should get versus the calls that you are more annoyances. And are you developing the relationship and solving the issue and creating loyalty through customer interaction versus having them hit a bot or hit a person or jump through 50 menu options in the IVR? Those things are all important. But I think too many executives get caught up in how do I deflect versus how do I empower? And so deflection is critical because, again, we're a cost model, but empowering your agents to create the experience is going to create loyalty and create longevity, not only from your customer, but also the agents. Most customers, in fact, all customer service agents want to come in and they want to help the customer. Agents get frustrated and we have lower scores from an employee satisfaction based on when they can't help the customer. And so I think having that empowerment and that ability to solve customer issues at the agent level, that's all a customer's looking for, and that's all an agent's looking for. And quite frankly, some companies just don't get it.
No bot has ever gotten a kudos call.
No.
It's never happened.
It hasn't.
And you're so right. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of companies that number one, so they focus on deflection because they see everything as a cost. But what they aren't considering is how many customers might I be losing because I'm deflecting them instead of creating an experience with them. And there's always a possibility, depending on your business, of generating revenue within customer service. Like,
absolutely.
There are upsell opportunities, there are cross-sell opportunities, potentially, depending on, what your business is. It's not always a cost. Sometimes it can be revenue as well. But that experience, no one ever gets off the phone or gets off an interaction with a bot and goes, man, that was great.
Right.
They might have solved their problem and they're satisfied, but that's the difference between, I can go eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and be satisfied. That's not the same as having a really amazing, memorable meal.
Right.
Where at the end of it, I'm like, whew, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And we can create that with people. So I love that you brought that to the forefront, because I absolutely agree with that.
I think the meal analogy is great, because if you think of the memorable meals that you've had, most of them not necessarily were all around the food. It was who you were with, and that made it memorable. Yeah, the food, I'm sure, is fantastic. And, hey, I'm a big pasta guy, love pasta. I can go, but I can have a great, fulfilling, memorable meal by myself with great pasta, but I would rather have it with a group of people that I want to spend time with. And so, having that memorable interaction is in fact an interaction. You don't have an interaction with a bot. You have a transaction with a bot.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Well, I think we've encouraged a lot of people to rethink their how they're going about deflection. If we haven't done that, I don't know what else we can do.
They weren't listening. These are not the droids you're looking for. These are not the droids you're looking for.
Brian, I could talk to you all day about really geeky things, and I'm sure you could do the same, but I think 3/4 of the audience might just say,
Oh,
I could watch Disney Plus. You guys
yeah,
aren't good actors, and you're both bald, and I'm over it. So
that's right.
so welcome.
You're not.
I'm glad to have another bald beard guy on the show. That is, I think you're like number 3 or 4. It's like, I need to
Awesome.
keep a count. I feel like it's not a requirement, but I always need to recognize, because, you know, game knows game. So
That's
thanks for
right.
joining.
That's right. No problem. Thanks for having me.